Greetings and welcome. This is RP MMO Radio. I will be one of your hosts, Ashen Phoenix, and of course, with me as always are the two ladies, Sib and Jazz. How's it going, gals?
Hello.
Hello.
This will be our 21st episode, The World RP Built. We're gonna kind of just do a fun what if. What if we had unlimited money, resources, and a small group of role players, say, I don't know, 3 or so of them, and anybody else that might call in. Yeah. Well, I just, in this particular instance, 3. What would we want if we could actually build like an MMO strictly for roleplay from the ground up, and see kind of where that would go. We always bitch and moan about everything we would like to see change, so let's see if we could do any better, at least conceptually, because I don't know about anybody else. I don't have the, what does it take now, about $100 million to put one of these pieces of shit together, and even then they kind of half-ass it. So, and we'll have an interview with just such a developer a little bit later in the show, so stay tuned. So, how's everybody been doing? Girls, you doing all right? Having fun?
Yeah. Not really, but
nobody's
real life is being grown up takes away a lot of the fun.
It's everything you imagined it would be as a young child, isn't it?
It really is the nightmare I thought it would be, yes.
See, I thought you would just be able to do what you wanted and eat, like, ice cream all the time, and it turns out you can. There's horrible, horrible consequences to it, though, because you no longer have that little kid body that could just absorb everything you stuffed into it.
Yep, that is the truth.
Yeah. So that was...
Adulting sucks.
Adulting sucks.
Yes, it does.
Yeah. So, real quick, if you're listening to us on the podcast, you can always listen to us live, like so many people are doing right now. I don't know how many, because I don't have that screen up, but we'll say so many. We'll say somewhere in the neighborhood of 5 to 1,500. It's anywhere from 5 actual people to 1,500.
I'm betting it's more like 5.
Yeah, you know what? I don't like your attitude. So you just take your negativity. Just take your negativity, shove it deep down. Just deep down.
Deep down.
Just, you can always join us at twitch.tv/RPMMO Radio every other Saturday at 7 Central Time, except for next week, which will actually be another episode, because the week after that is a holiday, and nobody's going to tune in the weekend of Thanksgiving. You're all going to be out doing other stuff, and so will we, so we're not going to be here. So instead, we're moving the episode up a notch, and we'll have 3 more after that. If you are listening to us live and you want to listen to it later, you can always find us on... Okay, I actually looked it up. It's called Apple Podcast now instead of iTunes, but it's still basically iTunes. And if you can't find it there, because from what I hear, it's basically ass incarnate to use Apple Podcast, still just use iTunes anyway and find it through there, or Google Play or Stitcher. We're on all those places. And as we said earlier, you can call in. So if you've got something that you want to talk about, either in roleplay or especially on the topic of things that you would like to see later on here when we get to it in a roleplay game, just join it. Go to rpmmoradio.com/discord and join our Discord server. Just throw yourself in the waiting room voice chat. Maybe let us know in the waiting room, or the caller details room, rather, about what it is you want to say, and we'll get to you here after a little while. So it's not too difficult, and if it is, just ask somebody, and we'll probably repeat it a couple times. So, to go over just a few things before we get kind of into the nitty-gritty of it, I am a fan. The whole reason we're actually here right now is because of another podcast known as Limit Break Radio, who does Final Fantasy XIV. Though the way they talk about it recently, you wouldn't think they actually do that, because they recently did a skit called, they called it Juxtober, which is a play on words of Jocktober, which is an old Opie and Anthony skit, before they burned down in a blaze of glory for whatever one of them said that was really fucking stupid. I don't even remember what it was, but I remember them apparently they didn't even like each other all that much, so I guess that was alright. But what they would do was listen to other media outlets, like other jocks and other radio shows, and basically roast the hell out of them. And for whatever dumbass reason, I thought, well, that sounds like fun. I know how vicious these people can be. Let's see what they think. Well, it was pretty vicious. But the silver lining was, and I knew that would be what came out of it, I actually learned a lot. One of those things right now is that I can talk like this, and I don't get picked up on Sib's microphone.
Mm-hmm.
And she does the same. Go ahead, Sib. Say something. Let us hear only your voice without it echoing through my microphone. No pressure.
I don't know what to say.
Perfect. That was beautiful. You've got the voice of an angel.
I've been sitting over here coughing. Doesn't that count? I'm like,
that's just smoker's cough. That's what that is.
oh yes.
You know how those heavy smokers are. I mean, she only quit 8 years ago, but still, whatever. So we actually learned that apparently when you're in the same room, one of the things you should never do, it's a cardinal sin, which no podcast forum I ever looked up on our social media on Facebook ever bothered to say, I don't know, mention, was that you should never have your microphones facing each other. Guess what we had our setup as? The last 20 episodes. And when I've been struggling with this ongoing bullshit of having to always make sure that I talked low so that I didn't go loud enough to be picked up on Sib's microphone. I don't know if you've noticed, but I'm able to actually talk like I wanted to have always talked and at my usual, normal, excessively loud and annoying tone. So hopefully that might bring a little bit more energy to the show, which I've always been kind of annoyed that we can't really do. The only one of the three of us that could do that was Jazz. And, she usually just has dogs and cats meow in the background and children.
Yeah, sadly, and children and everything else.
So those
that you'll hear in the background,
and it's going to happen.
But she knows how to use her mute too. So,
but she does use her mute.
I have it on fast key, so that all I have to do is go did it, and it's
which unfortunately
muted.
is something I can't do because if I do it, that little sound that everyone else hears, you all would hear too, and that would be sucky. You would know when I muted it. When they do it, it's no big deal. So yeah, we actually learned a lot from it. I know Sib listened to it, and what'd you think, hon?
oh, I went blank. I was like, what did I listen to? But it was Limit Break Radio, right? That's the question. Yeah. Okay. No, I thought it was pretty funny.
Yeah, they actually were pretty funny.
I thought they were pretty funny, yeah.
Yeah, they did have a few good points. Like, I'm really bad at interrupting story to try to get a joke in. But
what about like Jazz and Dib? I think it was, or Jazz and Bab, and
they got your two characters, your Jazz and Sib's name mixed up with Invader Zim characters, brother and sister. Yeah, Gaz and Dib. Yeah, is what they started calling. And then after a while, it was Jizz and Jazz.
Yeah. I was Jizz, just so you know.
Jizz.
Yeah,
they actually had Jazz, right? So
yeah, and they affectionately, of course, being the politically correct millennials that they are, referred to you both as holes.
Yeah. So just so you know, guys, if any of you guys are listening tonight, you guys will be referred to as the Twigs. So
the Twigs.
There you go.
The Twigs.
I like that.
That's right. But we're gonna actually. They did theirs in the open ante style of stuff. I'm going to do mine in the old-fashioned Comedy Central roast style, where I'm just going to let it all out. I've been listening to a long time. I guess you could say I was a fan. I guess I kind of still am. I mean,
would that be a creepy fan? Right. Would that be a creepy
I mean, I'm not saying that I'm stalking them. I'm just saying the main host of Nero probably should clean up underneath his couch. It's getting a little full of cat hair.
Gosh.
He's got a cat, and he really should start vacuuming behind that couch of his. But not that I'm stalking him. It's just, it's just a general observation from his window.
Nice.
So, yeah, that'll be That'll be a lot of fun. We're going to do that at the very, very end because I will tell you right now, it is not going to be politically correct. It is not going to be very kind. And it's going to be a hell of a lot of fun. Because I'm a fan of theirs, and nobody roasts you better than somebody that knows you.
Should we do like a disclosure, please?
Oh, we're going to do that at the very end. If you
have are faint of heart or weak of stomach, please turn away.
Yeah, if you're pregnant with child, if you've been near children, if you handled lead-based paint anytime recently, you probably won't want to listen. I'm not sure why, but I just assume that lead-based paint would probably be bad for you. I know it was when I ate the paint chips. So, we'll go into the next thing, which was one of the things they said is absolutely terrible on all podcasts, the personal updates of what you've been doing in roleplay. I, however, disagree, because ours isn't like what you usually get. You know, hopefully people actually find these fun and enjoyable. So, what have you guys been up to this last 2 weeks?
Well, you go ahead
first.
Oh,
no, go
okay.
Go ahead.
See, we're so nice. We try not to interrupt each other.
Shut up and get on with the show.
So the last 2 weeks, I've had a lot of turmoil still in my life. So I have been getting home late and not having as much time to role play as I would like. But I have still managed to take part, and I had taken a break during the mad leveling craze because it was double XP.
Oh yeah.
That we all, I took a character from level 20, not even 20, 16 to level 50 in 1 week, basically. So it was this mad level. Every minute I had was there. So I missed like a week and a half of RP. So when I started going back to Riften, there was nobody there. It was weird. It was quiet. And it was quiet every time I went. And I tried, going to different instances and seeing if maybe I was just in a nope. First of all, there was only one instance, so there just was not a lot of people in Riften at all. And then I realized that I was showing up and leaving in the dead zone, which is why it was quiet. Most people come roleplay between 5 and 7, 8 o'clock, and then they don't for a little while, and then the West Coast people show up around 11, and they go from 11 to 1 o'clock in the morning. And I found my little tack note about that, and I was like, oh, so I'm arriving right after it ends, and I'm leaving just before the other begins. That's why it's quiet. So I just started staying rather than going, seeing no one there and leaving, and just RPing with whoever was there with me. And pretty soon more people would trickle in, and it seems to be working, because I think a lot of people were like me. They were cruising in. They only saw 1 or 2 people. They'd leave. So by staying and encouraging other people to stay.
So, I mean.
Yeah. So, that way I think we've helped to regenerate it a little bit. Plus, I've met a new guild that I've recently become involved with, which is a vampire werewolf guild. And again, yes, I met them in Riften and kind of did their introductory roleplay and went from there. So I had a lot happen in 2 weeks. Just trying to reestablish roleplay and to build on some roleplay, as well as the Dark Elf Dunmer, not Tamriel. What's the name of the house? Because of the T.
Telvanni
roleplay within our guild. We have a small Telvanni group.
Yeah.
And we've been building RP that way. Yeah. And he's the lead, and we all kind of are interacting. And so that has built up and has increased as well. So that was fun. That's what I've been doing.
Snazzy. Jazzy.
Yes, thank you.
I see how that
Thank you. Yes, I saw that. I'm actually pretty good at that, Yeah.
But
move on.
No. See, it's funny because it rhymed. That was the joke.
I know. I got that.
You probably didn't get that because you're you're a woman. But it's okay.
Throw something at him, please.
I'll use smaller words.
I'm looking for paper. I just cleaned my desk.
Yeah, we actually had to move to do the thing with the microphone. We rearranged our entire office. Yeah. For the podcast. You're welcome.
And I actually cleaned off my desk.
Yes.
I have no paper, any trash.
We dusted the literal 1,000 years of dust that had apparently accumulated on all our stuff. It was pretty awful. So, what about you, Sib? You got something?
I haven't been in game much. Haven't really done a lot of RP. I've just had a lot of real busy real life stuff going on. I have been able to write a couple of things. Oh, and I did level a character during the double XP craze thing. And but it's the character I'm trying to put in the guild with Tarvala and the servants of the tribunal, and kind of trying to establish him. And again, he is a dude, and I am. It's a struggle for me for some reason. I just am not good at it. I'm real quiet, and I think I had him over there. I can't even remember what the mission was. No, I did. We did do a mission with him, and it was funny because I was sitting at the table, and across from me was Tarvala.
Like three other women. Yeah.
Yeah. Can't remember the other two's names. I'm sorry.
I don't either.
But they, one of them actually climbed up on the table and was staring my character down, and I'm just like, I don't know how a guy would respond to this.
It depends.
What should I do?
Here's a hint. It depends if you can see down her shirt or not when she's leaned forward in front of you.
I know, but that didn't even cross my mind.
Well,
it never crossed my mind to look down.
Well, they all are wearing pretty much tight leathers in this game, so there's really not a whole lot of opportunity for that, unless you're in a boob window, and then you can't not notice it. So.
Oh, that's true. But no, it was fun, but the story I've kind of got for him is he was a higher ranked ordinator, went on a mission. The mission went really bad in the Black Marsh, and he kind of lost his memory and pretty much lost everything. And his best friend basically told him, try to start out fresh, go somewhere new, and start a fresh beginning. And that's why I brought him over to the servants to see how it works. Hopefully it does. But I gotta post his bio and his story. I gotta get that posted.
Yeah, and it makes sense to like she was asking, because I mean, logically it seems to make sense to me, because with an ESO and the Elder Scrolls, the Ordinators, it's a lifelong commitment, like devoting yourself to Catholicism and in the church and things like that. So even if he lost his memory, well, he probably wouldn't be allowed to keep his thing because he has to relearn everything. They might let him. They'd probably let him start down for the lower ranks because he has to basically retrain from the ground up. And there's no quick way to do that. So, seemed like it would make sense.
Yeah, that's why I kind of went that route, because I'm not up to speed on the Dunmere as much as I am like the orcs, because I've really, for Volley, I really did a lot of research on her. So it's a learning thing for me right now with Ian, my Dunmere.
Yeah.
So that's what I've been up to.
Yeah, which actually reminds me, at the rpmmoradio.com, if for some reason you actually would be interested in anything we wrote about our characters, we actually have 3 separate little, they're not they're blogs, but they're not really blogs, but little places at the top where you can click on and read current stories from any of the characters as we write them. When that happens, it's pretty much up to whenever that feeling hits us. So I know I've got a few of mine for Tarvala up there, and I know that the gals have a few that they're going to get to me here shortly. And as soon as they do, I'll throw them up, and then as they'll probably, like, if Safe Jazz has a whole bunch for Sail, we'll probably put them all up at once, and then as she does that, we'll do them as it goes. So something you can check back on if for some reason you actually give a crap about anything we do in the roleplay. So you may not, but it's there. I'd rather have something on there that's super easy to do, because all I have to do is copy paste, and I rule at copy pasting. I'm very good at it.
I don't.
Unfortunately, you can't eat it like I used to in kindergarten, which is also disappointing. I really miss that creamy white paste.
Ew.
It's good eating right there. It's good eating.
You probably ate your boogers too, didn't you?
I don't have to answer your questions. Just a cruel and mean accusation. I mean, of course, I'm sure I did at one point, but I stopped a couple years ago.
Oh my gosh.
So, what? So, okay, so for what I was doing in roleplay, we actually had quite a bit. Last night was actually a lot of fun after we did a sort of impromptu training for marching in a video game, like having 2 columns of people and having them all try to, like, 4 in each column and have them try to, like, military precision march forward. Not easy, by the way. it's kind of funny. It's like watching ducklings try to follow their mother when one of them, you know, like starts to walk and then stops because they don't think the others are going to follow, and then they did it and then they didn't. But actually at the end, I was telling him and Roger was telling me, we all started to really understand is if you're at the front of the line, when he says go, just push the arrow and trust that the others will be there behind you. And once they did that, it actually looked pretty damn cool. It was actually fairly impressive.
Nice.
But after that, and we knew what it was. It's between lag and different computer builds. It's never going to look perfect. It's never going to be perfect. But it was fun to actually kind of try it just for like half an hour. And then I got to duel him, which you know how much I love to do that. And Tarvala actually got him to the ground, and then she fucked up because he said, "Help me up," but he didn't say "I give," and then he's like grabbed her arm, is like, "How's your ground game?" and then pulled her into like wrestling moves. But before that, she did disarm him, so she was like, and she was so stunned just by that she totally fell for it, and she had every right to fall for it because that was really dumb on her part. But that was just impromptu. What was really cool too is while we were fighting, it was those two have always been kind of challenging one another. But it also caused other people that were like, "Hey, do you want to fight?" By the time him and I got done, there were like 3 other groups of people fighting. So you never know when you do something like that. People are like, you know what? I haven't done that in a while. Let's give that a try. And it was all free-form combat, which we've gone over in previous episodes, which is, I always enjoy that, especially if you can find it with somebody you trust. But that's only one portion. The other thing was we had a big event. The same guy, Roger, he's an ordinator and basically an officer in that guild, has been doing this, God, what did it, probably once a week for it had to have been 5-6 weeks for this giant combat thing that he's been leading to, an actual kind of like war between, 2 armies. And it was a lot of fun, extremely complicated, something to keep, it's hard enough just to keep a group and play. I know Jazz knows that, just to keep everything straight.
Yes.
And then you multiply that by the fact that there's probably 3,000 other NPCs out there. It gets infinitely more complicated. But what makes that even worse? When you're near one of the dolmens, which if you don't play ESO is just a randomly spawning thing. And when you're in a group of people who are basically in cosplay armor, because we're all in our Ordinator outfits, which are like level 26. So we're basically cosplaying. So when somebody decides that, hey, I need that dolmen, I'm going to go hit it. So half of us died.
Why do people do that? Oh my god.
And the person that did it should know better, but their response was, I needed it. Well, yeah, that's fine. You can wait, because literally it happened once already in the beginning, but that was by accident. They don't think they knew it. They were a little too close, and one of the creatures spawned on them. But of course, in this game, the second somebody gets hit, the entire group of the 10 of us, all of a sudden we're all sitting there typing out for our combat, and all of a sudden below all of us, these little red circles appear, and then just splash damage everybody. It was
ugly.
It sucked, yes. And that was a simple mistake. But the one after that, where it's like, I needed it. No, we're in the middle of a really complex story. It's somebody, people. We're pre-typing out our stuff so that as soon as it's our turn to do what we do, we just slap enter. Combat destroys all of that.
Yes, it does.
People lose what they're typing. They lose their train of thought. just don't do that. If you need something, wait till the event's over. We'll help you afterward in our real army. You're there to role play. If you want to fight stuff, do it later. That was one of my that's kind of a pet peeve of mine. Just if you're there to role play, just be there to role play. If things are attacking you because they happen to spawn on top of where you're at, cool, whatever. That's happens.
Different, and it happens, and you can't really, in a game where everything cons to you, that's right. Unavoidable.
Yeah, because you're never grayed out. Everything is attackable, or KOS. There we go. Attackable. Yeah. So yeah, sorry, I had to take a drink. But yeah, that was. It's been a fun week, and I've had a lot of fun. But and even that, really, it was just a minor hiccup. But I've decided that from now on, when we tell these stories, we're going to make them a little bit more detailed, other than like, so I went to the bar and it was fun. I had a good time. I didn't actually drink anything because it's my character, but yeah, it was good. That's one of the things I realized with the roasting is like, you know what? And I actually had been thinking of it for a while. I'm like, we really should be doing this a little bit more interesting, a little bit more storyteller-ish, I guess. So hopefully we'll be working on that. If you guys ever have any suggestions or anything like that, feel free to shoot that our way. We'll listen to them unless it's absolutely ridiculous, in which case we'll flat out ignore it. Like if you start saying like, I should wear okay, no, I actually would wear a tinfoil hat because that would be funny. But something ridiculous like I don't know, a boa. Because I'm not wearing a boa constrictor. I don't like snakes. So yeah, but just give us a throw at that, and we'll see what we got. Okay, I think is that pretty much it. Everybody got their updates. I think
so. Yeah. Okay.
All right. So before we go into our main topic, of course, we have our sponsors, although this time it's not so much a sponsor as a interview from a brand new upcoming MMO with a brand new website, but I think it takes the spirit of almost all gaming websites these days, or at least the image of it. And in a dev, we know how developers are when they're schlocking, and that is the word for most of them, being that all the ones that have been created in the last several years are pretty schlocky. I think we can all agree on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, schlocky.
Schlocky works.
They don't really deliver on what they promise. So, without further ado, I guess we can go ahead and get to that interview.
Hello, I'm Barbara from PaidOffGamerReview.com. Coming up, we'll interview a real game developer of the next biggest MMO coming out soon, Fantasy Ass Fantasy, the MMO. What he doesn't know is that we've drugged him and he can only be honest, unlike every other PR dev. So without delay, he's Steve Stevenson of Fantasy Ass Fantasy.
Did you just say you drugged me?
Don't be silly. So the first question. What is Fantasy Ass Fantasy?
I'm glad you asked. I've only answered this a few thousand times, and it's, of course, not like you could have gone to our website. And so I'm going to go ahead and answer it again. FAF is a game we are currently developing, and we're completely overpromised on about 50% of what we're actually going to accomplish. It's a real shit show, Barbara.
Fascinating. So you're telling us that half the game won't be available at launch? Why not just delay it?
Oh, well, that's simple, Barbara. Shareholders and the suits above us, really, we could have had the entire thing done, but they started demanding a cash shop and loot boxes, and one of their little nephew of 5 gets to create one of our boss dungeons, which is why I'm horrified to announce one of our raids, or the main one, will actually be you'll be fighting the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles with Mickey Mouse swords. Pretty sure we're going to be sued out of existence of that one, but that's what they wanted.
Right. So how long will the rest of the game take to release once launched?
Oh, a few years probably, but it's okay because it won't be part of the original purchase like we had planned and how it was intended to be. So what we'll be doing now is releasing all the content that was originally planned for release as a DLC that we're going to charge extra about every 3 to 4 months, anywhere from $15 to $80 per DLC.
Well, aren't you worried when the word gets out that the players won't buy it anymore?
Oh my god. No way, do you really think that? Like, for real? Oh, that's cute. No, see, if it's pretty and flashy enough, they'll fork out hundreds of millions of dollars for it. I mean, yeah, okay, sure, they're gonna bitch and moan about it on the forums and social media. Ooh, but for every 1,000 of them that say that they won't buy it, 999 of them will. So we just ignore that like one guy.
Okay, well, one last question. What is your favorite feature of FAF?
Oh, that's an easy one. Once it's done, I won't have to come and do interviews like this one and sell this brass turd of a game as if it was golden. Yeah. So also, I can finally slip into the sweet embrace of death and let loose this mortal coil. My family left me. I have no friends. I work 80 hours a week, and frankly, my ability to even acknowledge reality is dwindled to the point I don't even know where I am right now. What's that?
Well, thank you, Steve. We wish you great success at Fantasy Ask Fantasy, the MMO. Said to be the biggest game ever made on a budget. I'm Barbara with PaidOffGameReview.com. Keep listening.
Awesome, you guys. That was wonderful.
That was awesome. Okay. I put my biggest grin on my face, too.
I thought of that because of something you had said in another episode with, I don't know, it was like Barbara from Maine or something like
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that was being Ice Cube. I'm trying to choke myself on, not water. But yeah, every time there's a new MMO out, God, is it the same level? Is it not just that same level of bullshit every single time where they promise all this stuff and then you get the game and you're like, what? Well, this isn't what they said it was going to be. This is.
Oh, I know.
This is terrible.
Well, it was like for ESO when it first came out. It was just.
Oh man, that one was real bad.
It seriously was a brass turd when it first came
really
out.
Was,
but
yeah.
It's such a fantastic game now, so they did a good job.
Yeah, they really in Final Fantasy 14. That was even worse. The 1.0 for that one. Oh my god.
Right.
That one. The fact that they were able to pull, like, resurrect that just giant decaying corpse of a game at all, even for as long as they have, is utterly amazing because it was horrible. I was so excited for that game. No jump. Okay. And also no quests. Okay. And we don't have any stories that thing Final Fantasy is known for in all the previous 13 games.
They had crafting.
We had and lev quests, which were the brand new, exciting future for leveling in an MMO, which is basically you click on a thing, it gives you a random kill quest. It takes all the fun of actually going to MTCs and hearing their story about why they need you to kill 10 rats and just boiled it down to, we don't really give a shit, just go kill 10 rats and come back.
Yeah.
Over and over and over. Actually, I take that back. At the beginning, it wasn't over and over and over again. At the beginning, every time you did it, it would cost, I forget what it was called. It was Anima or something like that. That would slowly refill as the day went on. So you could only do it until you got rid of those. And after that, then you had nothing to
Crafting.
do.
You got to go craft.
Yeah. It was horrible, man. They really did a great job pulling that game out of the fire, but ooh, man, that was really, really rough that first year, to the point where they were giving everybody free rides.
And you couldn't jump.
And you couldn't. Oh my god, that was.
If you hit the space bar in any game, you should jump.
Seriously.
Yes.
That's just a given.
I don't know how they figured that out.
What was great was the developer of that. He was like, "So are you guys going to have jump?" And he was like, "No, I don't think jumping's important."
How can somebody go through a game and think that jumping is not important? That's just...
You know what? I remember the first time I was like, okay, this is actually going to be a real problem. Was like there was a ledge, and on the other side of that ledge was a 6-inch fall. On both sides of that ledge was about 40 feet, and I had to go all the way around either way to go down to that 6 inches.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't even that you couldn't jump. You couldn't, like, fall off of things.
Really? No. You couldn't even fall?
It was basically like that. You know, if you were trying to get from, let's say, the bottom of your chair to the floor, there was an invisible wall there. If it was even that level of distance. Yeah, it was such a horrible thing when it started out. Yeah. That was a funny sound. You gotta think your internet crapped out on you. Robo laugh.
That was
funny.
That was creepy.
Yes, it's.
But
it was. I was trying to wait. Oh, there it goes. There we go. Am I back now?
Yeah, we can.
Okay.
We could hear you before. You just robo-ized. It was like this creepy electronic. You know that sound when Neo first goes into the Matrix and that metal crap goes down his throat and it goes. Yeah. It was exactly like that.
Oh, lovely.
You're in the Matrix now. Welcome.
Okay.
Speaking of the Matrix, we're actually going to get to some of its features here shortly. So, creating an MMO utopia for like role players. I know Jazz and I have had conversations like this, just to the point. You know, what is ad nauseum? Yeah, we're gonna go with ad nauseum because it's just there's just so many things that all these MMOs do great, one at a time. I don't know why they can't like, hey, this really worked and people love this feature here, and this really worked great over here. Let's do all these things in one. No, we're not going to do any of that. So, I know, Jazz, you had said when you were at college you had actual developers at your school? Or did we lose Jazz again? I think we lost Jazz again.
Uh-oh.
Oh, dear God, Jazz, where have you gone? But, okay, so I'll relay the story, and when she eventually gets her internet back, she can actually tell it correctly. But I know when she went to college recently, it was for design, and they actually had some developers come in, and apparently it was a class project like, what would you do if you could build like a game like that? And her and her classmates actually came up with this like laundry list of what they would want, and let's see, she's got 65 different points on it, and that's not counting the paragraphs and paragraphs. And of course, this is all like, it's not like an actual design document, because if you see those things, they're like thousands of pages long, but it's just basic ideas. So we're going to be using a lot of that. And see, now Jazz is gone, so hopefully she's probably restarting. She'll be back shortly. You think we can hold down the fort, Sib? You think you can do it? Yeah, I don't know.
Did you hear this cricket?
I hear you making horrible cricket noises, but I don't know about actual crickets. That's what the cat's for. You hear crunching in the middle of the night, you know you got one. So, we're gonna go ahead. You know what? We'll go ahead. I'll just start with you, Sib. I know we got a whole list of things, but honestly, there's so many things. I have a feeling I know some of the things that you would love, like in every MMO, and to have done correctly. So, you got something? What is it you would want?
Let's see. I know the first thing I'd want is for them to regulate the trolls. Please, give us something that will keep them from, being jerks. What was that? What is that TV series where the guy, he did something wrong and everybody was fuzzed out? What was that?
Black Mirror.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If they would give us something like that where we could just fuzz out the people that are trolls.
I would.
That would be awesome.
I think that would be a great feature because the block and ignore are good, but it's only for, it's I'm going to say vocal, but for text and things like that. It would be nice if there was actually a way that when you block somebody, like you'll never see that person until you unblock them again. So not only can they not come up in like a random dungeon or something like that, and you can never hear them, like you don't even have to, if they're being aggravating and annoying and like jumping all over you or something like that, like a lot of them do in taverns after you've ignored them, like their character just gone and you never have to see them again. I think that'd be an awesome feature.
Yeah, because I know even you can ignore the ones in ESO, but
they're still
on you. There,
yeah.
and they give those emotes where they can throw stuff at you like mud.
Oh yes.
Yeah, so they can still do that, and that is so annoying when you're trying to RP or when you're trying to stay at attention and it knocks you out. It is annoying. So if they would give me something like that, that'd be awesome. Let's see. I'm trying to think of something else. I know the chat, like the different chat styles in games.
Yeah, like being able to. Yeah, that's one thing that's really important too, is being able to create various like chat channels and things like that.
And being able to change the colors in them.
Definitely. Hey, welcome back, Jazz.
Hello.
Hey, Jess.
Yeah, you sacrificed that goat, did you?
Yeah. I love Windstream.
Nah, you're the only one.
No, God, I hate these people so much.
We have them out
I mean, I have been having like lag issues like all day, really bad. Actually, the last like week, I've been having really weird, like fine, then not fine, fine, not fine, fine. Well, you remember last time we recorded, I was having problems.
Yeah, that was a. Yeah, I apologize for that last episode. It was supposed to be our big Halloween special. Boy, was that a shit show from start to finish.
It was too. But this one, when you couldn't hear me anymore, I was like, but it says I have internet. And then I looked off to my right and my internet box was red. I was like, son of a bitch.
Yellow cone of shame. Yeah.
I was like, oh, I swore. The kids one of the boys poked his head in. Are you okay? I'm fine. Just waiting for the internet.
Get off the internet.
So I was trying to hook up to the boys when it came back on. So I went off on mine. So yeah. Yay.
Yeah. So where we were just going on.
I had mentioned blocking trolls better.
Yeah. And not only
I want that if I put their stupid ass on ignore, I want them to physically vanish.
That's what I said right after that you'll never see them again.
Oh my God. Why do I have to look at these trolls? If there's people that are not bothered by them dancing or simulating sex on the bar top, fine. But I shouldn't have to look at them.
I totally agree.
Or sitting in your lap.
Right. Yeah. Or they sit in my lap just to be obnoxious. You know what? I'm just going to put you on ignore and you're going to vanish. I don't got to look at your stupid ass anymore.
And if everyone else is tired of seeing them sitting on your lap, they can put you on ignore too. And then you're in a bar all by yourself as far as everyone else is concerned. You don't exist.
Right, and you know what? That would end. They wouldn't even have to do anything at that point.
Because you put them on ignore and that person's gone.
Yeah, and then you don't have to deal with them. Nobody gets pissed. It's very simple. You put them on ignore, you can't see them. You can't see their spells. You can't see what they do. And they're like, they whine about it. And they're like, if we did that, then you couldn't group with them. I don't want to group with them.
I don't want to group with them.
Who wants
and
to
if
group
everybody
with
has
them?
them on ignore, that asshole has sown what he, what is the, I think there's
reap what he has sown.
Yeah, there's a saying in some old book that actually is very, very good about that one, about reaping what you sow.
Yep.
Yeah. If you're going to be a dick to everybody and everybody is able to block your existence, that'd be awesome. That's what she was, Sib was mentioning, was a show called Black Mirror, where that actually happened, like with implants in the brains and the eyes. A guy had done something, and when you're ostracized in this society, they basically, people can see your outline, but they can no longer see your physical form. Like you're just static.
Yeah.
And if you're banished, everybody looks like that to you. And it was an awesome, you can't see anybody. They can't hear you. You can't hear them. You're basically living alone, but you know where people are at.
Yeah. And I think that in an MMO, they complain how, if they'd be forced to enforce against all the bullying and everything else that goes on, that it would be too time consuming. No, it's not. It's really simple. Put it in the damn code.
Yeah.
Make them vanish. You know what? And if somebody's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I invited you, but half my people can't see you for some reason. You must be being a jackass to somebody.
Yeah.
So you can't be in our raid. Bye." Maybe they'd learn.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's very simple. I really, really want that.
Now tell us how you really feel.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Nothing makes me madder than that bullshit.
Yeah.
If you're going to be a dick, I should be able to just put you on ignore and you vanish, damn it. I don't want to deal with it, and I shouldn't have to. They're all like, well, they pay their money. So do I.
So do I.
And they're ruining my experience because they're a dick. Just get rid of them. Yeah,
which
I don't want to deal with
what it is. They really do destroy it for everybody else around them, and they're. Anyway, we've been over trolls, so
yes.
We'll stick with
stop.
the reason why. That's good enough. The other thing we were just getting to when you got back was chat. Obviously, EQ2 did good with that, being able to create various channels so that you could have your guild chat, and then if you wanted, either that to be in character or out of character, you could make your own.
Yeah, but the problem in EQ is they never gave us any way to kick idiots out.
Right.
So
there would need
no
to be
control over the channel at all.
Right. It would need to be actually like Discord, so that the guild leader would be able to make it, and just like with the guild, they could put officers. Even if it's just attached to the guild, even so that you can make multiple channels within your guild, or make it so that you can invite other people to it, things like that.
Yeah, it's really not hard either. I don't know why they don't do it. It's absolutely easy to do, and just give people the control to be able to decide if someone should be. This person was mean to me. Well, stop being a dick. There you go. Problem solved. They don't have to do anything.
Yeah. Okay. And another thing I think would be really cool is if you could actually control the distance of your spatial chat.
Yes.
I think that no one's ever, as far as I know, that's not a thing that's existed ever. But I
think this game does pretty good. They do kind of good with it because as you walk away, sound fades, like on your in actual what you can hear. So, but I think they need to do it better for spatial when you're talking, because there are some games that have made it so that as you walk away, only a few of the words come out and they stop making sense because you're only getting, like, out of a 10-word sentence, you're only getting 4 words.
I've never even seen that. I've never even seen that.
I don't remember where I saw it in, but I thought it was an excellent idea to implement, because that would make you feel more like there's
like a
you
crowd.
Can't hear the
yeah,
right, because then you'd feel like, oh, so. Or like if you only and as you learn language, EQ1
did that.
As you learn, you only get a few words in the gibberish until you finally learn.
Although that was easily defeated by basically language learning circle jerks.
Yes.
In the comments, everyone would gather around, and you would literally, it was enter up, like over and over and over, and it's like, you got better at orc, you got better at troll, +2, +3, +4, It went very quickly, but it was.
But I mean, a lot of people wouldn't care, but role players would have loved it.
But for distance, it would be also, you know what I mean, like you could slide it, so instead of having it say, I don't know what if we'll just say 30 meters, that you could slide it so that it's like 2, and so like when you when you're whispering, it would actually say is whispering in a distance of 2 meters, so that literally only people right there next to you would be able to hear it, and anybody else, they would only see like whispers. Something like that would be really,
and I think
really
that's
cool.
Certainly codable. I don't understand why they don't do it, but
because we're talking about building our fantasy role play game from the game up. Obviously, they don't do it because they rarely gave a shit about role players.
Well, it's not just for role players. I think a lot of people would find that really fun.
Probably, but it's considered a role
remember
play
in Guild
thing.
Wars. Remember in Guild Wars 2, anything that you said you could hear through the whole zone. So
that's right.
If you were talking in one place, everybody could hear you through the whole zone, no matter where they were.
Yeah.
So there was no way to control that, and it was just as annoying to the non-role players as it was to the actual role players, because when you're talking to Joe next to you, you don't want the whole zone going, really? Tell me more.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that was some seriously bad designs, but and of course, we have to go into, if you're doing that, definitely have to have the ability to make custom emotes. Yes. Obviously, that's essential. Why some games make that so difficult, and it could be /E/EM or /emote. I'm looking at you, Final Fantasy 14, where I had to type /emote every single time, or /EM, or it wasn't just /E.
Yes.
It was annoying.
And it was very annoying. It was very annoying. And also that if you're going to make physical emotes that can be used to harass people, you need to make it so that they can't do it more than, say, 2 times in a row.
Like what I don't know if you heard what Sib had said when she was talking.
No, she wasn't.
Oh yeah, you were gone. When she was talking about like in the snowballs or the mud that flings it in ESO, you can only hit a person with that, like, I don't know, once every 10 minutes or something.
Yeah.
So it still works, but you don't get to do that anymore.
Yeah, you can't. Or up your game and say anybody that is reported for doing this, if we see it in the scroll, you're in trouble. And then you won't be able to use that emote at all.
Yeah.
We'll just take it away from you. So
Seriously in the chat was saying in WildStar there was a player-made mod that was great for this, for the text. You could control the text fall-off rate, so if you were far away, it would start missing letters, and if you get far enough away,
that's what I was thinking
you would just get a comment like, "What did Ashton say about your mother?" and things like that. So yeah, so that must. I didn't. We did WildStar, but I didn't get far enough into.
And I couldn't remember which game it was, but I remember there was a game that did that, and I thought that was a fantastic idea.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
But I mean, if you're going to make, piss, vomit, all of those emotes, which can be very nice for role players, but let's be honest, they only put them in there to troll role players. That's the only reason why they're there, because there's no real need for that anywhere else.
Age of Conan, I kind of saw it just because I think they included that because they had NPCs pissing off the docks in Mother.
Yes, but remember, within a couple of months of open, they negated it. It would no longer work. They got so many complaints of people getting pissed on and being just infuriated by it.
Hi, I'm R. Kelly.
Yeah. So they nixed it like immediately.
Yeah.
And then it eventually did come back, but there was no stream. So.
What's the fun in that?
I know, so that nobody ever used it again. Yeah. But for a while, it was used all the time. But then they got so many complaints, they're like, "Oh, screw it, it's not worth it." So they got rid of it. I thought it was a nice touch. It's unfortunate that there's these small-minded, little-dicked people out there who can't think of anything better to do than pee on somebody because they think it's funny.
Hey, you leave me out of this.
I didn't say it.
Yes. So, let's see. Of course. One thing I had said, I was just getting into it when you crashed. That document you created, that was, I had said it was something from, you had a developer come to your college and your class had kind of made something about what you would do in an MMO. Is that where that thing came from? If I'm remembering the story right? Jazz?
Yes, I think so.
Okay. Yeah. I was trying to tell, I was actually going to have you do it, and then it was like, and she's gone. So, but I wanted to make sure I had that right, because like I said, she's got everything here from, I'll hit a couple of them real quick. Sandbox with a theme, focus, or point. Interact with NPCs to change policy and politics. Rating system, both AI and players. Multiple guilds. Harvesting real time with Growback. I am drinking coffee. I swear to God, there's nothing else in this. Multi-classing. Complex crafting system. Ugh. My perfect roleplay MMO has no crafting system. No, I know it's a necessary, even though I don't really enjoy it. But I mean, it's like it goes on and on like that for 65 other things. So we're kind of hitting the big ones.
Well, I have been listening to people for a long time, so I have been, every time somebody tells me one that I haven't put on the list, it ends up on the bottom. I actually stopped this list about a year ago at aging characters and at number 49. And so over the last year, I have added 50 to 65. So these are what people, particularly playing ESO, has made me really like.
Yeah, I actually like the 28th one, the City Life, that has quests where you can level up without actually killing things, like level up without being an Avenger or something like that. I
really would like to see that more in MMOs, that you don't actually kill people unless you really want to. You beat them down until they're then drug off by some medic or something, or their girlfriend or whatever.
He loves me. He says he loves me. Don't hurt him.
And then if you decide to kill, yes or no, like in AOC, in PvP, you would have finish him thing that you could choose to do, and
was it coup de grace?
Something like that, yeah. So there was like this big kill hit, and you could choose to do that.
Which was really cool.
It was really cool. It was a lot of fun. And if you really want to do that, I think you should be able to. But there's a consequence. Because let's be honest, if you're going to run around and kill hundreds of thousands of people, you're going to have a reputation. And I liked some games have reputation and punishment systems for character violations, and some don't. There's a couple of very niche MMOs out there that do that. So I really like that idea a lot, because when I level my character's not doing that. My character's not going to go. One of my characters, for example, Cial totally would. She would just kill everything because that's Cial. But most of my characters would never run around and just kill masses of people for a quest. So that just doesn't happen.
Yeah. But yeah, that's definitely something that I'd love to see that stuff. I mean, of course, obviously, I'd love to see that. That's the whole point of this stupid show.
Yeah.
So another thing, of course, obviously, lore. You need to have really, if we were doing this in order, I personally think lore would be the first thing you have to come up with and write before you even start on really all the other systems. Maybe you have a base idea of what you're going for, but you really need to know how the world works, how the people are, what's life like, how the magic and science of it work. Is it harsh like a Game of Thrones or the Witcher type of a world, or
yes,
a little more happy-go-lucky like Lord of the Rings or
Final Fantasy?
In Final Fantasy.
Lotro, where there's more. It's more of a positive experience.
Yeah, where it's definitely even World of Warcraft. I think that, but that has something to do with its aesthetic, really. Because
WoW can be very very dark, but it's very cartoony.
But it's so cartoony, it never feels.
That's true.
It's true. It's like getting dark in a Disney movie. It's
exactly.
And not an old Disney movie where they got dark. It was fucking creepy. I mean, like the last 10 years of Disney movies. It's dark, but it's still bright.
I consider Lord of the Rings dark because you can't play a dark character. You can't. There's no bad guys. All of the bad guys are people you fight.
You consider it dark because of that?
Yes.
Really?
If you can't play a bad guy, because if you have somebody who's playing a vampire, for example, that really can't exist in game.
You mean, yeah.
If you want to play a serial killer, the chances of you actually existing within the lore of the game, because of the way the lore is built, makes it very, very difficult to play a dark character unless you bend the lore. So, all the bad guys, all the dark guys are bad guys.
Yeah.
And there's nothing in the lore, in the quests, if you're doing something bad, you get caught and you are punished, and that's the end of it. So while I enjoyed Lotro, and it was a very positive experience, it was a little too positive for me.
Yeah.
Like my MMOs to be a little dirtier than that. So it was hard for me.
Yeah, it doesn't necessarily have to be Age of Conan dark, but
no.
Lord of the
Rings
I
like to be able to have.
Me too.
I mean, even in AOC, you couldn't be a vampire or werewolf. Those just when you always had people try, but there was no way in the lore for you to do it.
Lore-wise for that, yeah. And see, that's another thing. That's why the lore is really important. You need to have your know what your gods and goddesses are, how the creation of it, and it doesn't necessarily, like we've brought up before, like Norath. We know exactly how Norath was. We know there's only one creation story, which is one thing I like about Elder Scrolls, is that it's just like real life Earth. There's multiple versions of how everything got to where it's got.
Yes.
Just like, and that's, it creates, just like it does here on Earth, what everybody agrees. Some of it's divine, some of, in creation, and some of it's evolution, and some of it's a mix of the two, and giant spaghetti monsters, and I don't know, whatever the fuck Scientologists believe.
Exactly. So, and to answer Cersei, in AOC, there was a vampire, or what we would consider a vampire. I don't believe they called her that. There was one, but all of her minions are kind of like feral zombie sort of things, and the werewolves, you just simply turn into this mindless killing machine.
It was a beast.
You
were a mindless beast.
This wasn't somebody that could like turn back into a person and go interact with people. There was no way. You could be a werewolf, fine. You want to run around out there and, slather and chew on things.
Or having
a
life.
There was no speaking. You didn't have a life. You didn't get married and have kids. You mated with a dog like a puppy, and you made babies like a that were puppies.
Yeah,
It wasn't like what you would expect, which is why a lot of people that like that kind of role play quickly were slapped down because they tried.
Yeah, and was like, it doesn't work. I mean, the Conan has been around for, what is it now, 80 years, 70 years, something?
More than that, yeah. It's been around a long time.
It's one of the oldest Final Fantasy, it's one of the oldest, fantasy
it's before
genres.
Tolkien.
Yeah.
It's before Tolkien. So it was around a long time.
And it's always been like that. So the lore for it was created long before the game, and the vampires,
there's no wiggle room.
Don't and that was kind of the thing with a lot of the Conan stuff. It was because it was some of the first. There wasn't a lot of gray. It was bad, good was good. There's pure evil creatures, and then there's good people. There's there's really not a lot of gray areas. There's a handful of characters that were in between. Sorta,
you could play a necromancer. You could play someone possessed. There were things that you could do, and you could be very dark. But yeah, exactly. Author was, yes, he was. So yeah, I was going to say it was more than 80 years because we keep thinking that 10 years ago was 1990, dear, and it's not.
Yeah, I know. I couldn't remember it. Yeah, yeah, but no, it was set in stone the way the world for the Conan.
There was no way around
before. It was none of this. All this modern stuff came in. Like you just pointed out, probably only the last 30 or 40 years.
Yeah.
Really, when it came to storytelling, that was with things like the Wolfman from the old Universal Studios pictures that really made that popularized.
Yeah. So I mean, the concept of like vampires, of course, has been around for a long time, but it didn't really make it into a lot of contemporary, into a lot of authors, into a lot of stories, even in books. It just wasn't, because they were so horrible to civilized man that it wasn't until the last 50 years that it's really become a big thing. So
so lore, so you'd have to, with the lore, you have to come up with the stories. That's really probably, it's like a secondary thing, I think, currently, when really, at least with roleplay, that would be a primary focus, I would think. Would you say that? Yeah,
I would say that. Yeah,
and then from there, because depending on how your lore works, you would go into like one of the things, like what it should look like, pin it down, like what's the style, what's the aesthetic, is it kind of realistic, is it cartoony, is it in between? I know I've always I've been more of a fan of the fairly realistic, at least the look of it.
Yes.
Like the characters and people to be fairly realistic, and the world itself to be realistic, but not the structures.
Yes.
If that makes sense.
Yes.
Like
I don't want a modern, like that's what I didn't like about Secret Life. It was just too modern for me.
And
I agree totally with that.
Yeah, and that's what I didn't like about EverQuest 2 actually. Was like, it was high fantasy, but everything that was built in that world was realistic. It looked like something you could actually kind of build.
And see, I liked that about it a lot.
Well, see, what I mean is, like, I want, when it comes to like structural things, like for something ancient, I want it to be big and over the top, like like an old ancient monolith that stands at hundreds of feet in the sky, that that would be like our version of Stonehenge. Like, how the hell did they build that when they back in those times, kind of thing. I like that part of fantasy. It's a personal thing with me. Like, that's one of the things I love about Star Wars, is everything is so grandiose and over the top when it comes to the size and scope and scale of things.
That was like my pet peeve, that I couldn't stand that about Tor, because it's like, were these people 300 feet tall? Why do you need a door that is that big? What the hell? People are this big, and it's
because it looks good.
No, it doesn't.
It looks awesome.
Can you imagine how much it would cost to heat a building like that? I mean, seriously? That's where my mind goes. It's just like heat rises. You're going to be freezing down here all the time. I would never be warm.
It's magic.
That's nice.
But yeah, I personally, I've always liked the realistic, like especially for character models and stuff. Like when it gets into, like that was one of the things that turned me off with World of Warcraft. I wasn't really into. I mean, I thought it looked neat, but I just couldn't get into it. I really tried with WildStar, which it had a lot of game mechanic problems that I couldn't get really past after a while.
I didn't like the cartoony,
but it was too cartoony
for me. Yeah,
and
Guild Wars 2 was pushing it, but I could handle Guild Wars 2.
Well, that was
my limit.
That's like an Asian aesthetic though too, which is totally different from the cartoony thing. Like that's like Black Desert Online. It's a gorgeous game, but it's got that like Final Fantasy smooth skin, you know, man girl.
But I think that's what I'm saying is that it was. Black Desert Online was too far. Final Fantasy was too far. Guild Wars was my line. That is as far as I could go with that look before it just felt stupid.
See, for me too, even because I guess maybe it's because I like the Asian aesthetic, because I don't mind that, but like for me, Rift was one I just couldn't get past. I didn't like the way the characters looked.
Really?
Yeah, no.
To me, they kind of looked like Guild Wars 2. I mean,
yeah,
they did.
I can remember.
Rift and Guild Wars 2, I would put in the same.
Well, I think part of it was because, like on the character I have, the way there was something wrong with the face in the way that it always looked like he had like a Band-Aid on his nose, like someone had punched him. But it was
all the boys looked odd.
Right, it looked horrible. I couldn't, you know, I like to make the guy look about as good as I can, you know. I don't want him to be like, you know, oh, I'm super attractive, you know, like like those creepy models, you know, from like the runway models for the men's stuff that's not really anything an actual man would wear, the real effeminate look.
Mm-hmm.
But to make at least like a good looking guy, and you could not do everybody looked like ass in that game if you were playing a dude. You know,
yeah,
I
played Rift long after you did. I went to Rift after it was basically dead, and it's still dead, but it blimps along. My kids play it; they like it. I played it for a little while just as a second game to get away from EQ. But again, like Guild Wars, it was right on that line. But the boys, I tried to roll a boy, I could not make him look right, so I ended up just having girls.
Yeah, and it didn't work at all. And a quick reminder too, if anybody actually out there listening has something they want to add to the discussion, feel free to go into the caller waiting room and let us know what you want, and we'll bring you on and see what you got to say too. So just throwing that out there again. Yep. In case anybody forgets or there's anybody new that wasn't here at the start. Okay, so kind of got an aesthetic down. So here's another question. How big should in-game cities be? Like, I know I'll use Rift again. The main city, at least for the good guy side on that, was it was basically one building with a couple little huts around it. It was real. It wasn't a city. It was just a large town with a big monolithic, thing in the center.
Well, I think with the new stuff that's coming out, we're seeing bigger and bigger and bigger games, bigger and bigger housing and cities and more streets and out in the country, the countryside's bigger and more believable. They're using like big maps and you're just in a small area of that map, and it makes it feel more real because they're not just saying you can walk across this entire continent in an hour.
Yeah, and one thing that's like back in the days of even EverQuest 2 and World of Warcraft that they can do now that was garbage then, and even when they did it in Dungeons, was going vertically. You couldn't used to do that because the NPCs would clip through the ground, they would get stuck. It was a real shit show. Now, that's one thing I've the recent stuff with ESO, like the what was the desert one, the Thieves Guild one. They built a lot of that city. It's actually the same size as a lot of the others, like Mournhold, things like that. But the reason it feels so much bigger is it's on multiple tiers. You've got, when you come in, you're basically on the middle tier, and then below that, like there's a whole.
The Valkyrie?
No, it's not Valkyrie Desert. I forget what it was called. Valkyrie.
I know they tried to do that with. Oh my god, I've forgotten the name of it in EQ2. That multi-level city that was a nightmare, and you could not navigate to save. Gorwyn.
Yeah, the Sarnax. Yeah. That was just badly. That was very, very badly designed because it wasn't natural. It was basically a giant empty cavern with like a spiral ham up the sides, and the way to get from one to the other was to go down long caves. But like that one.
Did you just say a spiral ham?
I'm kind of looking.
He's not wrong.
I'm kind of looking forward to Thanksgiving.
It is kind of like that. I know before we could fly, one of the things that I would do in Gorwyn was that rather than navigate the damn place, I would just leap into the water at the bottom, and then go back up to the place I needed to be because I didn't want to deal with it.
Yep.
So once you could fly, of course, all that was solved. It was actually a nice city to hang out in once you could fly.
But walking around it was, See, and that's the ESO one. It's it's got 3 or 4 different levels. Like it's got the rooftop thing, it's got the city streets, and then below that, it's got the dock area, which is way below.
It's incredibly confusing to the Clockwork City thing, but it's very well done. Yes. I was really pleased with it. I thought it was beautiful. They did a really good job with
Clockwork City. I loved looking up in the sky and seeing the giant, the sky is all clockwork gears and stuff from the tiny little statue. I actually just finished that one up today.
I haven't even started it yet, but I was there briefly on one of my characters.
Well, you've got months until the next one, so there's really no, rush. I just didn't have anything else going on when I was doing it.
Can I just say, since we're talking about cities and stuff, can we have like teleporters or some type of system to get us from one to the other? Because even in my games, I'm lazy and I don't feel like running through big cities.
One of the biggest things that I hear from people is the two sides. Either they want to be able to teleport and not have to frickin' deal with it, or they want to be able to go everywhere. And to have to walk
everywhere.
Yeah, everywhere. There's no teleporters anywhere. I would die. I don't have that kind of. No, I couldn't do it.
I think on a limited base, like even ESO kind of overdoes the teleporters a little bit.
I see. I like it though because they wrote it into the lore. It makes sense.
Well, no.
Yes. I'm 100%.
I mean, from a game mechanic thing. And really, for like inside cities, it would depend on how big you have them. Like in BDO, their main city, it's actually really big, and it takes up a lot of space, and it's really, really well designed. It looks really cool, and it feels like if you were in like an ancient Rome kind of that. I mean, it's sprawling. It goes up about 5-6 stories in certain spots with apartment buildings and things like that. So. But I really like that. But you also, one thing like in ESO that I like is how many towns and cities there are. That every zone pretty much has one main city, and some of them have a couple of them along with small villages. That really makes the world feel populated. So that's another thing that would be really nice to have if we could make our own thing, is not have just one city and also have each city be distinct. I mean, it's like going from Tulsa here to Los Angeles, or from here to Kansas City, or to New York, or down to New Orleans. They all have different ways that it feels to them. Kind of should have that in an MMO as well. I think that would be a really neat feature if every place you went to had its own. It, again, goes back to lore that each area sort of came up out of its own thing naturally, just like they would in real life. You just kind of have a little more control over it.
Yeah. I really like the idea of massiveness. And I think we'll see more of that in games as time passes, as we get better and better and technology gets better and better. I think we'll be able to do that more. I like that idea because I would like to be able, for example, to have a game be so big that you can't walk across it in one day of real time.
Yeah.
I really want to see that. And I want to see that there's that level of zone for like a dozen factions, so that you don't necessarily get to see the whole world unless you go to each faction and do everything there.
You're really there for a long time.
Yeah, because I want to be able to invest that time. I think that is really important.
Yeah, but wouldn't teleporters cheap that experience?
No, I don't think so, because you're always going to have people that don't want to freaking walk, but they still want to see all the world. They still want to experience it, and you'll still have your horse or whatever
and
that
I do
can
think
get you from point A to point B.
Definitely, to use it, you would have to go to it. You would have to travel there on your own first. That's one thing ESO does.
I like that a great deal. Yeah. I like being able to have to, but I think that I shouldn't have to do it on every single fucking tune I have. Once I do it, I don't want to see it again, guys. Just give me the damn waypoint.
Just give you the access to it.
I was talking more like I want teleporters for our houses.
Are you that lazy, really?
Like the big houses?
Although if I could have one that took me from
all
here
the way around the freaking big houses, I'm like, yeah, I want a teleporter.
I'd take one in my own house if I didn't have to climb the stairs anymore. I actually would go with that.
Rossi.
He's taught me to be really good lazy.
Oh, I'm a great teacher. Yeah, I can teach anybody to do nothing and be proud of it. So that takes us to another thing. If depending on the cities and things like that, player housing, guild housing.
I really think that, and it's one of those things that I've gotten into debates with, like when I was in school, with people that were there, and they were like, housing isn't important, and I stood up, and so did a couple of the people who don't role play. I mean, and they were saying they talked first and said this is why housing is important, and then I stood up and said from a role player point of view, this is why housing is important. And what I don't understand is there's 3 things that you're saving yourself by having housing. 1, you aren't going to have to police the ERPers because they can go scuttle off to their little place and you don't have to deal with it. 2, you're giving people a place to nest, and RP or not, they're going to like that, and they're going to buy things to go into that nest, and you're going to make a killing. So from a absolutely monetary point of view, housing makes absolutely a lot of sense, and any game that has it will tell you how much money they make on it. It's ridiculously
and
stupid.
Even people that don't roleplay really,
they want to decorate their.
They'll collect.
How many of us secretly like to play with doll houses? Come on, I mean that's all it is. It's a dollhouse. Look at how fun The Sims was. What did most of us do when we played Sims? Did we actually play Sims, or did we just build houses?
All right, I built a pool and put a guy in it, and then took the ladder away. Watched him slowly
I think we all did that.
Go in circles. Yeah. I also built a room with a single window,
and took
away the door, and shrunk it down to the size of a tile, and said, I'd like to play a game.
You're horrible. We've all done it. That's the funny part. Yeah, so, I mean, all they have to do is look at the popularity of Sims and know that they're not tapping into something that's hugely important. So after I had told these guys this, they were like, actually, that's actually true.
Yeah, well, and
they couldn't really argue with me about it. And then I also pointed out that role players are the first and last in every game.
So now here's the other part. Door instanced like EQ2 and sort of ESO, I suppose, although that's actually not even as good. Or the Final Fantasy 14 route, where they have the different wards and they're actually a physical location. Or lastly, the Star Wars Galaxies route, where you actually had large tracts of land and you could actually build your own city and owned, houses and structures and townships and things like that.
I personally think that a game needs to be big enough so that everybody can have a house if they want it. You can build your own cities and manage them if you have enough money and time, because Lord knows there are some people that have both. I'm never going to have that kind of time, but I can understand why somebody would want to. And if that's your thing, why can't you do it? And I think they would make a lot of money doing that from a money standpoint. Again, all you need to do is have your game big enough to support it, or understand that it's going to be instanced in some sense. And that's okay too. That makes them happy and they don't have to deal with the extra server bloat.
Because that's one thing Final Fantasy 14 has a problem with, is they only have so many wards, and they fill up, at least on the roleplay server, they're gone. I mean, they're just gone, unless you're willing to pay millions and millions of gil. you can't get them anymore, or you have to get at just the right time. It's impossible. You go to other servers, you can, but they're not role play servers, so why would a role player bother?
Yeah. And I think that it's really important to understand that everybody wants their own place, and it's not that hard. Like in Lotro, they had like Final Fantasy, they had wards, and you could go in there, and they had the same problem with that because they never had enough housing. They underestimated how much people would want it. So that's definitely something to address in a new game, is always you need to have a way to have enough housing that it works.
So okay, here's maybe combine them, like within the actual cities, the game ran cities, that you can do the instance housing somewhat like BDO did, which is actually that they were a location and you could actually go to them, or EQ2 basically did the same thing. The problem with BDO is when you went in there, that everybody instanced their own house room, but when you did spatial chat, it all overlapped as though you were all in the same room, which was really stupid.
That was annoying.
I would rather have to zone in to avoid that.
When you're looking for RP and you're like running around this building 1,000 times and you're like, where the heck are they? And then you realize they're in the house. You can't even
But you
get
don't
to
know
it.
which one because you're not friends with any of them. Yeah, that was really
So you can't get
really
to
bad.
the RP.
But so you do that, like we'll say like EQ2 did, where there's instance, apartments and things like that within the city, and then maybe you actually can have player run, Star Wars Galaxies type things where they actually had, like, you could build a city hall, you had residential districts, you had you basically built your own city, and you could levy taxes and things like that. What do you think about going into such a complex system that you actually control, like the players literally control areas of the game if it was big enough?
I'm 100% for that, and there have been several games that have done very well with that. They're all niche games, but they do exist. And is having
Arcade one of them. I never got to play that.
That I don't know. I never played that.
I tried.
There was an old
bot
game.
Thing wouldn't let me.
I think they finally closed, but there was a game where you could run for mayor, that there was NPCs in control until somebody ran for mayor, and then you actually do the whole run for mayor thing, and then you'd actually be the mayor of the town.
Mm-hmm.
There was a lot of control given to the players to do these things, and it was a hugely interesting to me game for that reason, because it gave players the ability to make changes within that city. So I thought that was always a good idea.
Things like that.
Yeah. You directly affect the commerce. You directly affect the way the game works. And I think people would really like that a lot.
Yeah, Galaxies was like that too, because you did have taxes, you did have things like that, so that you could, and it was basically like a guild run city for the most part. I mean, if you're going to be honest, but you could actually have people outside your guild move into your town.
Yes.
With permissions and things like that.
And also, a lot of times, because they always talk about space and they talk about server space and all of that, and I've pointed out on more than one occasion when talking to them, it's like, how many places do you have in your game where you have empty buildings that are just shells? Why couldn't those shells, those doors, all those doors be connections to different houses that people can rent and fill up?
Yeah.
And it wouldn't be that hard because it would all go to an instance, so who cares?
Yeah. You just have to have the server tech to back it up.
Exactly. And I think that we'll see more of that as time goes on, because, we're not the only ones talking about all this. And I think that devs are listening, and I think that when it comes to money, eventually it will win out. They'll be like, let's do this, especially as people's private lives become more and more and more complicated, and you really just want to get and have a more simple life in a game. It's much more soothing than dealing with the fact that you have to pay a bill in 2 days or you're going to lose your lights.
Yeah. Little things.
Yeah.
Okay. So, yeah, I think that would be, I think that would be a really cool thing. But you just, again, this would also require a massive world. So since we have unlimited funds and unlimited devs to do that, we'll get them right on that.
Yeah.
The other big thing, of course, is character creation and races.
Yes.
As much as possible.
I want to be able to play any races in the game. without most. I mean, you're always going to have some that are like Uber or whatever, but if you can see the race, you should be able, at least maybe by lottery, you should be able to play any race in the game. I think that if you see an NPC wearing a piece of clothes, you should be able to find those clothes somewhere. I hate that you see them wearing this stuff that you can't have, no matter what.
It seems like a waste of art assets too, that they went and created this for an NPC that's literally the same body type, as the characters, and yet nowhere can you find that. I know
they could sell it and make so much money off of it. Humor us and just
that. ESO has they do that with hairstyles, emotes, and clothing all together. There's whole aspects of the game that only the NPCs have access to, and we're like, oh, I'd really like to be able to I forget. I don't know if it was a new one or something. I don't know if it was in Clockwork City or not, but there was a group of guys sitting around playing dice.
Yes, I want to be able to do that, please.
There's another thing. I would like to be able to do that emote and do card games, like for actual in-game. Obviously, I don't want to be spending real gold, but like in-game gold that we earn, I think it would be the coolest thing to sit down around a table, like like some of these stupid poker games Facebook has, and play poker with other characters, and you could sit there and shoot the shit the whole time while you're playing in character, and and you're gambling against them, and however it goes is however it goes, and whoever
that would
wins.
Be neat to have.
That wouldn't it be? That'd be so cool. And I don't know that anybody has ever done anything like that, as far as I'm aware. I can't. Think of any gambling.
Well,
there
was a couple games that I know AOC had some kind of dice game. Towards the end, I don't know if they still have it or not, but there have been a couple of times where you've had dice games and things like that, and then players have created card games using the /random system.
And that's never as good. Like I want it to be. I want to physically see my character standing around or sitting at a, like it could even be like a, it actually has to be like the card table, and there's only just like at a casino, and once you sit down to it, you wait for whatever current game is starting, and then you can play against, anybody else there.
Right. And you should be able to have like a little window pops up that shows you your cards.
Yeah.
And, a little mini game within the game. Mini games are hugely popular. Hugely popular. And I don't see any reason why they don't do that more.
Well, I know in EQ2 we made that casino.
Yep.
And had people come over and we set up little games, and those were fun.
Yeah. It worked very well. The fact that we had to do that because for some reason they had the art assets for gambling tables and all this other stuff, yet that's literally all it was.
They weren't usable.
Yeah, it's just art. Yeah.
Which, and that was it Star Wars Sabacc, the card game for that. People would love to play that, for, and you don't have to make it crazy. There's minimums and there's maximum bids, and maybe the pot can only go up so high. But again, it's in character. It has no actual value. Technically, it has no actual value. Gold sellers and spammers would probably say otherwise.
I did not realize ESO didn't have the random roll 100.
Yeah, which is there's another feature that we need.
That. Yeah,
that's a must roleplay feature /random.
Well, I didn't realize it until I saw on the Aluna, the Discord, that you guys were doing the rolls in there. I was like, at first I saw it and I was like, what are they doing? And then I talked to Wolf the other night, and he was telling me you guys were doing like a D&D in the chat channel, which I thought was cool.
I agree. I think we really need to see more of that in games.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, more mini games in the game. And it doesn't seem, it really, I mean, like I said, freaking Facebook has had these things for almost since the inception of Facebook. Once it really got going, they've got like Yahtzee that you can play against people. All these games that seem like you should be fairly easy to tack on to something. I mean, again, I'm no developer, and it's probably more difficult than I thought, but we have unlimited funds and unlimited developers, so it's going to happen. But And I think that would, even for non-role players, I think, could you imagine just being able to like, have a card game in a game with your buds, whether you role play or not, especially if you're able to use things like Discord where you can, just shoot the shit with people and actually, play these things while you're, when you're all playing a game as well. And for some reason you want to do this. I mean, I know they could play card games all they want, but there's something to be said about being able to physically see a character, that's sitting there.
I can see it now. Honey, I got a card game tonight with the guys in game.
I'll be I'll be in the other room. You'll know where I'm at. Just keep the beers coming, baby. I'm bringing home the gill tonight. Daddy needs a new pair of Chocobo shoes.
There you go.
So of course, well, fuck, we got way off topic. Character creation and races. That's what we were talking about.
How did we get onto that one?
I have no idea. I have to listen to it later. But yeah, more details the better. As many. What was the stupid superhero one that everybody loved, and then of course because they loved it, they killed it. NCSoft did that.
Wasn't it City of Heroes?
City of Heroes. That was it. Yeah, City of Heroes. Had an amazing character creator. I mean, just the level of stuff, and that was just with clothing and things like that. But have a number of scars, have hairstyles and things like that. The ability to change your hairstyle after you've done it without having to pay an arm and a leg or real life money. Some of the games, I'm looking at you. I think ESO is one of them, at least with the physical characteristics.
Yes.
But yeah, be able to, bust size, butt size, hips, muscles.
I want to be able to, and tattoos. If I want my whole body covered in tattoos, I should be able to do that. Yeah. And it shouldn't just be one weird symmetrical looking thing.
Yeah.
I want to see it. And
multiple tattoos.
I do not. I mean, and the thing is when you talk about this sort of stuff, they'll talk about, that because we're online and it has to be downloaded, that there are limits, and there are, and I understand that, but there's absolutely no reason why you can't see it, and why you can't tell, you can't click a thing that says, let this person see my tattoos for a minute. Yeah. Because you should be able to see your character the way you want, and in a sense, your computer is really carrying the majority of the load. Why can't you choose to make your character look however damn well you want? And if you want somebody to see truly what you look like and not the dumbed down version that the game can handle, you click a little link and it downloads it for that person, and then they see you in game that way as well because they download it on their computer.
If they want to save on their bandwidth, they could just click the option so that things like that just don't come through. However, that excuse they gave you is utter bullshit, especially in the 4K era. That Xbox One X just came out, and it will up some of the games that are already out. They're getting retexturized for 4K. So a game, I forget which one it was. It was something like, I'm going to say 60 gigs to start with. When they put in the 4K textures, it was over 120. It nearly doubled in size just due to textures.
Right.
That was to go from, standard HD to 4K. So, I mean, in this age, it might take a long time, but really, if the game is good enough, I mean, Jazz, how long back in the days, of early EQ2
well,
did you
they're
sit
all
there
very
for
spoiled, yes.
Hours and hours.
When we were just chatting online, and when you had to get on AOL, you started the process and walked the fuck away for like 20 minutes until it hooked up. So when they're talking about, well, it takes a whole 30 seconds extra to download that crap into my game, I'm like, but if I'm downloading it, it's on my system and other people's system that they downloaded. Why can't we do that? And it's connected through the game. There's absolutely no reason. It doesn't affect bandwidth at all. So yeah, it's one of those things that they're just doing because they don't want to spend the money to actually do it.
Right. And it's one of those just little details that they don't think are important. But really, I mean, even again, we're building this for role players, but in the sense of non-role players, people love, people still like to do that shit. They still, they love to do that kind of stuff. Even the non-role players, they'll spend, if it's detailed, like it's like City of Heroes, for example. It didn't have a ton of role players. It had quite a few, But the majority of that game, like most games, wasn't role players. And yet people would spend a shit ton of time making their character. Because the costume, in that game, clothing was its own thing. That was your character, was part of the clothing. That you can't, you couldn't change it really. Like,
and if they would open up the game and let people make some of their own stuff, and again, download it on your system, and then you can share it with other people if you want to, so they can see you. I mean, Minecraft and Roblox and whatever the stupid thing my kids are playing right now, where GTA, they download these skins.
GTA Online has almost a form of that.
Yeah, where you download skins, and if you're in a skin and you get into a game and nobody can see you, then you have to pick a different skin because not everybody has it. Mm-hmm. And they'll say, I don't have that skin, or where did I get it so that I can see you? So they work together so that everybody has the same skin when they're playing the game. But this person is choosing how their character is going to look, and then they're uploading that, so that other people can have it. Why can't we do that in an MMO like this? There's no reason. It's just laziness.
Development time and like we had the interview, the suits upstairs, and the shareholders just don't think it's profitable enough.
And it is, and they would make so much money doing it. It just boggles that they don't make that leap to how much money they could fleece us idiots
if they
for.
Did, yeah. if they do it right, all it takes. Look at the recent way that we'll use movies as a thing. Like early on, like the Marvel movies that have now gross. I think there's like 17 of them. They gross billions and billions of dollars. Early on, they were very, very tightly controlled. That the corporates and all that. And now they're almost letting that's how you get things like Thor Ragnarok, which is a complete change from the way the character of Thor has been done in the past. Because it's kind of like almost like Guardians of the Galaxies in that it's a lot. It's a lot of serious stuff going on, a lot of great fights, but there's a lot more humor to it because they let the director kind of do what he wanted to do. They gave him control over it, and because the suits kind of stayed out of it, it's making money hand over fist because everybody loves the movie, because he didn't have, Steve from accountant say, well, that's cost prohibitive. We can't do that right now. We're going to actually have Lou Ferrigno come back instead of doing the CGI Hulk in this one. So Lou, get yourself painted up. You're on in 5.
Yeah, but I mean, it's. I just lost my train of thought. I hate getting old. What was I gonna say?
How amazing I am, and that I know Lou Ferrigno. By the way, still just as buff as he was back during that show. You do not want to fuck with that man.
Yeah, well, he does. Okay, I remembered. He will crush you. Niche games and niche movies and things that people are like, well, only a small group of people are going to like that. Well, small is still millions of people. Right. So stop thinking so small and start realizing that even if there's only 16 million people playing your game who are paying $20, do the math. That's still hugely and successful.
And it's not, they're still thinking of, a lot of them are still thinking MMOs like they have 2 things I think they need to get over. One, you're not going to be a WoW killer if you're trying to be like WoW.
No.
If you, World of Warcraft was, a flash in the pan. It came at the time, and it did everything it needed to do perfect, and that's why it became what it became.
Right, it nailed it, and you can never do that.
You can't do that 15 years later. For one, technology. Back then, you were still looked at as a fucking weirdo when you're like, yeah, so I was online on the internet last night, and I was talking to somebody over Instant Messenger in Ireland about, they're like, oh, nerd, you fucking weirdo. Now that's perfectly, with the inception of the smartphone, everybody basically does what we were doing 15, 20 years ago, and it's perfectly socially acceptable now.
Yes.
So the stigma, look at esports, for example. I mean, it's a fucking esports. It's electronic sports. People are getting paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to with their thumbs, like that, like the buttons, like an actual athlete. And don't get me wrong, while it may not be as physical, those guys are doing something I fucking can't do. Just like a basketball player or a football player or a hockey player. I'm good at games. I am not that good at games. I'm not willing to spend 12 hours every single day training in a single game so that I know every little bit inside and out. That's a level of commitment I don't have. So I just pulled the jazz. I've kind of lost my train of thought there too. But it's oh, that's right. It's just acceptable now. These things, video games, it's been growing hand over fist. I mean, look at this. We're doing a show with me and two women about video games and role playing. And I know role playing tends to have more women than men, but there was a time, Dungeons and Dragons, couldn't get a lot of women into that either, especially back when it first started. It was kind of a guy thing, and girls getting into it was like, wow, really?
Yeah, but they were also told the girls couldn't do it. So...
Right, exactly. But that's what I'm saying. The culture has changed on that.
Yes, it has, very much so.
For one, guys are pathetic and desperate, and they want to have the girl there. Who else they gonna ERP with? Am I right, gals? Oh yeah. My. But it is more, all that technology and stuff. Video games as a whole are more acceptable now. So you got to stop thinking like it was 15 years ago. You can't think like when
25.
WoW came out. No, I meant when WoW came out.
Yeah, that was a lot longer than 15 years ago, dear.
World of Warcraft? No, it wasn't. It was like 2004, 2005. It came out the same year as EQ2.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I was thinking of something else.
Yes, you were. Which just proves why men are just better at time.
Oh, shut up.
Wow, she brought out the British on that one. Holy shit. Wow. I really got there. But yeah, it's actually because I remembered like
yeah, it was 2004, you're right.
2004. Yeah.
I know you guys were originally on character creation and kind of went off on a tangent.
Woo!
Something to drop into that character creation.
Forward.
Oh, sorry.
Go for it, girl.
Yeah.
Well, he starts looking at me, so I start looking at him.
Well, that's because you're talking, and I can look at you. You have to still talk into the mic.
But no, I would like to have like a little description in whenever we do make our characters to kind of, I know EQ2 had it.
Oh, the bio.
The little bio that you could write down,
yes,
what your character look like. I liked that aspect. So that would be something I would like to have in the game.
Yes.
Since we're being able to put whatever we want in our game.
No, I completely agree. Of course, even if you don't use it to, a lot of times we had to describe what our characters look like because the game didn't allow for it. If we were able to really do that, and you wouldn't need to, but it's still needed so that you could be like, you could describe, because let's be honest, even things like walking emotes and things like that, at least for now, that's probably, it can be done, but some of them are so bad.
Yes, they are.
Stupid gesture one in fucking ESO drives me crazy every time I see some fucking idiot running around like he's from the Ministry of Silly Walks from Monty Python skit. It drives me crazy. But yeah, because it could tell you can tell
no matter
what your accent was, or if they little details and things like that. It's always useful.
Yes, because no matter how detailed the game gets, it's always going to be. I mean, even if you are able to make your character look and act the way you want, when you're interacting with everyone else initially, they're not going to be able to see those things because it's just on your computer. So having something on there that says, hey, this is what I actually look like, ping me for details or whatever. Having a little bio or a way to talk to somebody is an absolutely, like, I used to put, do not ERP with me.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and you can do things like no ERP. They did that. The one in Final Fantasy 14 was, I think the tweet, like 140, 200 characters is perfect. Final Fantasy 14 was a little small. It was like 20 or something ridiculously short. Basically, you had enough to write if you were a Fuda, or how long your dick was, or if you ERP'd or not. And that was pretty much all it was used for FF14. You saw those two, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
So yeah, that's actually, that would be a really
that is something that is really, really necessary. Being able to talk about your character, about the details that you can't possibly put in a game, like you said, like the way their voice sounds, the way they smell, what perfume they wear, that kind of stuff is hugely important in roleplay. Or even just like if they're like, I'm a raider, I only want to do these raids. I only want to do these groups. I mean, if you could access that, it would help people communicate. So it's hugely important and is often overlooked.
Well, I know I liked it in EQ2 a lot, so that's why I would like to have that in our game.
Yeah, well,
yes,
and
I agree.
You actually were able to, because of that, you had your Wild Orchid Flower Shop thing as part of that too, didn't you? So that people could. Excuse me. No, I'm hiccuping.
No, it was when we had events like the balls and stuff. I would request people to
put the description of their dress.
Yeah. Which again, if we're able to, being that we've created this MMO, they should be able to make themselves look like however they want because they'll have a full die system. Another thing that would be nice too is if one thing I don't like in ESO is that you can't. When you're dying something, there's only those 3 slots. It needs to be more detailed than that, for one.
Was it Rift that had the really good die? Like, you could pick each piece that you wanted to die?
Was it, or was that Guild Wars 2, Jazz? Did Guild Wars 2 have a good die system?
They had random, I believe.
Yeah, I don't remember. But there's been a few. I know it's, I don't know. But you need to be able to die each thing, to more than a group of 3 or 4. I understand there's still got to be
that kind of die.
Yeah, like
okay.
Die.
Yeah, I was
like dyeing the clothes and dyeing the armor.
Yes, they had a very good die system, but the downside was you had to buy it all per character. I spent so much money just buying dyes, but I liked it because you could make money doing that. You could craft your dyes and sell them, and it was fantastic.
Right.
I made so much money in that game; it was wrong.
Yes,
said just selling dyes.
Guild Wars 2 had 4 die channels according to Cersei on the chat.
Yes.
So, but yeah, you got to have, if what I was saying was that being able, like, the costumes in ESO are neat, but it would be nice if you could still mix and match, like armor, like costume slots. Like ESO, if you have the costume on, it's the full costume. That's it. I liked EQ2, and there's several other games do that, where they have there's the armor slot of what you're wearing, and then there's the slot of what people see visually.
Yes,
that is
absolutely necessary, and I don't know why more games don't do that.
See, because even in Final Fantasy 14's, you could make the item that you were wearing look like another item, which is it's good. That's a good start. Still not ideal. I still like to be able to. That way, I can always have my armor on. So I don't get ganked or killed randomly, but I can just put whatever I want over top of it individually as pieces, and dye each one from there, and also not have to, maybe and make the dye system something that people can make money on, but something that it's not ridiculous. It needs to be something that's accessible.
And my God,
that's basic stuff is,
ESO really doesn't do the dive system very well because their colors mostly suck.
That new Davoth Fear armor, Sabea, the guild leader from, she got it. She says it dies like ass.
Yeah, I mean, so many of them die horribly, and the dyes and the colors themselves are shit. They're not really
they come out faded. There's it's like an extra added texture, so like your red turns pink, and even your blacks turn like night coal black turns out gray
sometimes somehow. And sometimes it turns like stupid black. So I mean, their dye system needs
like
work.
That,
but
in that new one, apparently the red trim on it cannot dye it away. It's there regardless. It's not dyeable, so you're stuck with that regardless. Yes,
you should be able to completely dye the armor. Every aspect of it should be able to 4 or 5 channels. You should be able to pick what you look like in your armor, and it's not hard. And everyone wants that, from the raider to the role player, and everyone in between wants to be able to dye their armor. Yeah. And you could.
If you want to look like an edgelord, or you want to look like a fucking Jingles the Happy Go Clown, you should be able to dye it that way.
Yes, and it's just, I just don't understand why this is a problem, but it would be absolutely, EQ never did really get dyeing,
No, they never did they?
No, they never did get dyeing, and I really think because they didn't make their armor that way. I understand that they shitty coding shock, but, if you're going to have a die system, have the dies be able to make money for people. I think that was huge. That was one really nice way somebody could actually make dies. And it should be able to be, you buy the die, it's yours forever on that character. Well, I hated that I had to buy them all for each character. I understood it because it was a money-making way for people to make money. Yeah. And I was fine with that because I was helping support players, and I was fine with that. And also, you know, I could just buy gold. So I really didn't care how much stuff cost because I could just buy gold.
So which do you prefer, to be able to do it like that, or I kind of don't mind the way ESO does it, where it's locked behind achievements. Some of the achievements, some of them are so ridiculous. You know, if you're not a raider, I'm never going to get a lot of them because I don't raid and do that stuff. But it's at least most of them are accessible if I actually like pinned myself down and did that.
But it requires so much time to get so many of these achievements. And I don't mind making some of the dies achievements. I mind that all of the dies are achievements, and I do not want to have to deal with that.
At least the good thing with this is it's account wide. So once you do it on one character, they all have access. That it's kind of a happy medium, but you're right. I don't prefer it. I would prefer to be. But you know, part of the player run thing too is that I always hate is in a lot of these is how like the really, you know, obviously black, true reds, true whites are ridiculously priced.
Well, yes, you know that was always why I made a character that could make die. Because if you're going to be a role player, you're probably going to have lots of alts any damn way. So make one of them that makes dies and go through the quest to get it all, and go through the hassle of getting a character that makes dies. Because not only will you make money, I made a stupid amount of money on that character. I stopped having to buy gold. Because I just made dies. I made so much money, it was sick. But up until then I was buying lots of gold, but then that just stopped once I got my die character.
Once you became an entrepreneur,
then I was actually just writing money. It was ridiculous. Because you had to go harvest all those rare items to make the whites and the colors people wanted. And so you could charge stupid amount of money for it, but that just goes along with capitalism. So
which you have to have a strong economy in those.
Yes. Things. In order to maintain a strong economy, you have to give people ways to make money.
Yeah.
That's 100% necessary. So we're running almost out of time.
So
are you going to do?
Yeah, we'll do one more real quick thing with emotes. Lots of emotes.
Yes.
And I was talking with Mikey, who's called in the show before, and he reminded me of what MXO Matrix Online used to do with their emotes, which I don't know that I've seen since, which is a shame. But you know, like when you danced with somebody, you could actually click the player and do the dance emote, and then it would pop up on their window like, so and so wants to dance with you, yes or no, and you'd hit yes, and then your characters together would dance. Like they'd be synced up. If you wanted to slap somebody, you know, you could emote to slap them, and it would ask them on their end, and your characters would move together, and you know, bam, you'd slap them, or kiss them, or hug them. Any physical
I missed out on that game.
Yeah,
I read about it. I really liked that idea a lot.
Yeah, and it was really, really cool. You know, I've never seen another. It made me talking with Mikey. I realized I haven't seen that ever again, as far as I know. I mean, like you two, you could do the slap, but if you weren't positioned perfectly, you just slapped the air like a jackass. Also, speaking of EQ2, don't make your emotes so ridiculously like pantomime that they look fucking stupid. Like, oh, I don't know, smile.
Oh my god,
where
that's so bad.
Golly gee, Wilbur. Oh,
and the hand goes. Oh! Yeah, it was just so.
You did the old-fashioned 1950s. Yeah.
Oh, it was bad.
It's fucking ridiculous. But yes, emotes, lots and lots of emotes. Capture them, do what you got to do, and make them interactive. That was one thing we realized with the marching one. It'd be really cool, like for military guilds, if like the leader of the group could actually select formation and like you could actually line up all the characters like right behind him and do like a march side by side or different formations. And you basically, it'd be like a follow. You just give him control. Of course, you can always take it back whenever you want. So, if he tries to drop you all off a cliff, which would be hilarious, you gave him permission to let your character go off the cliff, so it's on you.
Right.
But that would be a really cool thing in that I've again never seen it, and I think it would actually probably get used, especially in a role play setting, get used a shit ton. So
yes, agreed.
And Circe's saying that she's actually seen a couple of smaller MMOs that have those interactive emotes, but I guess I must not have seen them. I've heard about them, but I've never actually seen them. No, they must be ones that have gone under my radar or something like that, or if they were Asian MMOs, I probably just didn't bother with them because they're so grindy. I've had really bad luck with them. So, all right. Well, I think that was pretty good. I know there's still a ton of other stuff, and this might even be one we come back to at a later time, just because there's just so much cool stuff that we would all love to see. It's kind of a bitch about it's really more of a bitching about what isn't being done right now in any one game than what it is that we would really want to see. But before we let you go, we of course have the Limit Break Radio roast. As I said, this was it's one I'm they're all right. They're pretty good. But I submitted them. Gals won't be able to hear this, but I'm going to play you just a minute or two of what it is that they were saying, it's just so that you could understand the of the 3-hour show, we were 2 hours of their content.
Awesome.
Because they're talking about Final Fantasy 14, and of course, one of them of the crew plays it still. Basically, they're a little what you would call burnt out and not too thrilled with the current setting of the game. So here's just a little bit of them and what they had to say from Limit Break Radio, episode 134.
All right, so it's time for Juxtober.
Techno beat.
Damn it. Just kidding. Okay. All right, so Juxta, who do we have for Juxtober?
All right, our first lovely contestant is RP MMO Radio.
Ooh.
Yet another person to borrow our naming convention of putting radio on the end of a podcast.
That's right, yeah. We were the very first ones to come up with that ever. That's our bit.
Yeah.
All right, so RP MMO has 3 hosts, Ashen Phoenix, which is the main dude.
Okay. Ash and Phoenix?
Ashen.
Ashen Phoenix.
Like if you're covered in ash, you'd be an Ashen Phoenix.
I like Ash and Phoenix more.
What an awful name. What a terror! If you can listen,
or you can
if you get to choose your own name, why would you choose Ashen Phoenix?
Maybe he was like playing Pokemon one day, and he's like, Ash really should have an Oho. And he's like, Oho, and it's like, oh, it's a Phoenix, Ash and a Phoenix.
Wow, what a journey you just went on.
Yeah, as you can tell, it basically goes on like that for 2 hours. Yeah, it was awful. And he actually put more thought into how I got my name than actually existed, which was sad, actually. So they did theirs in the style of Opie and Anthony. And as I said, I'm going to do ours in a little bit more of the old-fashioned roasts as, people with, talent and don't just... basically talk about themselves the entire 2-hour time period. They actually played probably about an entire 5 minutes total of the show, but they managed to pull an entire 2 hours worth of content out of it, which was just mind-numbingly awful. I mean, it
was
horrible.
Very impressive.
Yeah,
I thought it was impressive.
So here's gonna go ahead and do ours. So I know most of you probably haven't heard it. So Limit Break Radio, they're a Final Fantasy based podcast that sprung up from their old Final Fantasy 11 podcast. Now, to say that these guys know how to pick nothing but the best MMOs to play, devote hundreds of hours, if not thousands of hours of play and talk time to, clearly goes without saying. And, Why pick the best when you can pick a Final Fantasy MMO? A franchise that does everything it can do to follow the George Lucas form of sequel making. They've got all the things you need for a podcast run by the SJW college dropout millennial. You got their main host, who is Aniro. You actually heard him on the thing. He was the one saying that's awful. He's one of the early adopters of punk rock ear gauges, so that others around him know at a glance that I make bad life choices. He's also the only one that actually does work in the radio industry. Of course, saying that he does work in the radio industry is like saying the janitor that works at the Kennedy Space Center also works for NASA. You can also objectively start a drinking game when he talks. Anytime you hear the word objectively, you take a shot. You'll have concerned family rolling you over so fast within the first hour so that you don't choke on your own vomit. Objectively. Then we have Juxtaposition, whose name I can only guess he chose assuming it was something from the Kama Sutra and thought he was being naughty. He's also the obligatory fat guy gamer. It sounds like something you would get if you took all the voices of your favorite, like, Sunday morning cartoons, mixed them together, and created the human vocal equivalent of nails on a chalkboard. Also, amazingly, he's also the only one that has managed to reproduce. And when he did that, he then named the spawn Roberta, because apparently names from the 50s are in style, and he also really hates his kid. Then we have the one woman, Nika, who clearly suffers from Stockholm Syndrome. She's constantly told to shut up every time she opens her mouth and tries to add anything to the show, and sadly, that's actually the best outcome for her, since when her male oppressors do try to allow her to speak, it's nothing worth hearing. Just some anime bullshit, something, I took Japanese, weeb. The end. That's pretty much all she brings to the show. Then we have Callow. I'll be honest, I don't have much to say about him. Everything he does say kind of goes in one ear and out the other, and I forget he's actually on the show most of the time, and so did their crew for about a year. So I'm trying to think of witty things to say about him, but no one really remembers the sidekick. I mean, he's kind of like Robin without the hopeful future of one day becoming Nightwing. You know, he shows up each week and kind of humps Nero's leg in the hopes that he'll be noticed. And of course, then rounding out the cast, we have the token transgender LGBTQ member, Escalia, whose sole purpose seems to be their I'm not a racist, I know a black person version for transgenders and cocksucking jokes. Apparently, he's also still in transition, going from skinny white dude to anorexic white dude with sassily colored hair. In fact, the only thing they don't hit up is the black guy. No, they have one, and they push the only black guy they could actually get that actually has gaming skills and talent, and they put him off onto a completely different show, unrelated to their original work, for a radio version they based off of yet another podcast that they have. That finally rounds out the cast of hosts, which by now is actually kind of looking like a casting call for any and every show that CW runs. They are literally the CW of podcasts. So that's the hosts of LBR, which is for Final Fantasy XIV. Then their other podcast, Final Encountercast, which is gaming, in general. Then they have Checkpoint Radio, which is like esports, and like there's threes of people that are striving to listen to it. It's broadcast all over the country, I guess. If you say so, at best, it's probably just tin-roofed, backwater, basement-dwelling radio stations across the country. I mean, not all across the country. It's kind of dotted like a drunken midget was throwing darts at a map 10 feet off the ground and like, yeah, we'll air it here. So, no, there's one other thing I can't hit them on, and that's their quality of audio. Amazing work goes into their intros and their outros, their segment transitions, the whole thing. it sounds like the real deal. It actually sounds very, very good. Unfortunately, that's ruined the moment they open their mouths and then the worst of the 90s shock jocks appear. Think something like Howard Stern if he was being portrayed by the cast of Big Bang Theory. You get, such amazing bits as the Wheel of Racism or erotic fan fiction, which amazingly the fat one that is only the actual one that's getting laid consistently constantly asks for. Also, you can listen to people with talent redo Final Fantasy XIV songs on a I forget what it's called. Nobody really pays attention. You get people like Husky by the Geek, who is without exception very, very talented, and he's the intro and outro of our show, which thanks Husky, you rule. Sorry that you have to have these people listen to you and that they're fans. Sadly, every single one of these is ruined by them talking over the entire song, and telling people with actual abilities and gifts how to do it better. If only they had dropped that beat just a little sooner. It's kind of worth hearing too if you go to the creator's actual YouTube page and listen to it there, other than the half-assed version of America's Got Talent judges that they try to pull off. And on the off chance that they even actually talk about Final Fantasy XIV on their Final Fantasy XIV podcast, you can listen for hours and hours as they list every reason why you should probably never play Final Fantasy XIV. A fact that they finally realized recently, deciding to take their 3-hour podcast with a solid 20 minutes worth of content down to 2 hours. A fact that not one single listener lamented and all praised them for, to the point of donating extra money during their live show in the hopes of actually making it shorter. It was the best $5 I've ever spent. Now, to say that LBR is changing the landscape of MMO podcasts is kind of like saying hoverboards change the way people travel around the world. They are the actual Andy Dick of gaming podcasts. Short-lived success followed by, look at me, I'm still relevant bits. This is only further proven by the fact that the guy that calls himself Mr. Happy has more views when he live streams himself wiping his ass with Final Fantasy XIV box art than they do in an entire production of their full show. Truly, guys, bravo. You're amazing. Okay, so to be sincere and actually not just do that whole thing, I'm actually a huge fan of their podcast, although it may not sound like it if you've never heard them. They're a sarcastic bunch of assholes. They're great sports, amazing people, and they actually do have a very good eye for quality. Part of why I offered our show up was really just to have the reason to try and troll them back. They're always willing to be trolled on their show, and I've actually heard several times where people try. Most of their trolls, though, aren't fans, and as they point out themselves, they're fucking terrible at it. It's just so pathetically sad. So I wanted to try to do it myself. And hopefully the fact that I'm actually a huge fan of theirs, and I actually never miss a podcast of either their two shows for Final Encounter Cast and Limit Break Radio. Guys, hopefully, if you're hearing this, know that you rock, and you are, in fact, the podcast that inspired me to go into podcasting with Jazz and Sib here. And and you're the ones that I've always held your standards for audio quality and enjoyable, entertaining content while talking me out the topics. We do try to emulate you in that way because nobody does it better than you do. You're really, really good at it. You've always entertained me. In fact, when I'm at work and I start busting out laughing, I just have the reputation for, yeah, that's just Mike. He does that. For anybody out there, even if you don't play Final Fantasy XIV, definitely give them a check. You can check their show out at limitbreakradio.com, or if you just want the same level of entertainment but without the Final Fantasy XIV spin, you can go to finalencountercast.com and listen to their just general 2-hour gaming show. It covers all the consoles, PCs, blah, 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 blah. They do talk an awful lot about Pokemon Go still, but that's just because apparently they're in an area that doesn't fucking suck for Pokemon Go. And also, lastly, they are the first, so far as I'm aware, that have a real syndicated radio show on esports across the country. That actually wasn't a joke. They actually have 36 different actual physical radio stations, 2 of them here in Oklahoma, 1 in Oklahoma City, 1 here in Tulsa, that airs them each once a week. I forget the days. And that number is actually continually growing. They've been doing it for less than a year, and they're up to 36 radio stations in syndication. They're trying to
That's impressive.
It is impressive. Mm-hmm. They do a fantastic job. Obviously, a lot less cunt, dick, and cock-sucking jokes because they have the
I would assume so.
FCC to worry about. But what they have done is impressive. And if you want to hear about esports and gaming and stuff like that, check them out at checkpointradio.com and see if they're playing on a local radio station near you. And if they're not, you can actually now hear them online. It was a bit of a thing at the beginning because they actually have overlords. I forget who I forget who it was. I'm not going to say because I can't remember. So it's radio friendly, quick 12-minute bursts, and they got the commercials and stuff like that, and it's on gaming and esports. Honestly, guys, that was a lot of fun. I really, really thank you guys for letting us roast you and roasting us to begin with, and have of all the podcasts you picked. We actually cut out an entire other podcast. They did ours for so long, and we're having, I guess, either there was so much content or I knew they didn't like role players, so I knew we'd probably get picked. They were predictable, if nothing else. They actually had of the other podcast didn't even get mentioned on the show. Apparently, they're going to do it tomorrow. So if you want to hear another roast, if that's what they're actually going to still continue with, they're going to do that tomorrow. And they also do their stuff live on Twitch. So I learned a lot with talks from them on podcasting and production quality, like the echoing fucking microphones that we have really had only a handful of times happen the entire night, which is usually when I got way too loud. And even then, I was probably facing the wrong direction. So, appreciate it. You guys, Aniro, Juxta, Nika, Callo, Escalia, sweet, buttery skinned Escalia. Thank you all. Keep it up. And honestly, you guys always have a fan here with me. You really do. I love you guys. Job. Keep it up. So, there's our roast of Limit Break Radio. Now that we've gone, probably now our longest show
ever.
Yes.
Again. We'll go ahead and
we're blaming Ashen.
Yeah, well, that was totally worth it because we learned a lot from them. So
yeah,
with that, I think we're gonna cut this pig loose and let it go for the night. Don't forget, next week will be another episode. It'll be our 22nd episode. We're gonna do something on sort of Thanksgiving-ish related on roleplay.
I'm naming it "Wear Your Sweatpants."
All right, so tune in for RP MMO Radio episode 22, Wear Your Sweatpants, which just fucking works for me. That'll be sweet Jesus. Oh, I need to go get a drink. And this is why you love me. This is why I love you. That's fucking funny. You got me on that one. So join us next week, same time at 7 o'clock, twitch.tv/RPMMO Radio. We'll be here. Bring your sweatpants. And of course, tune in next time when we'll begin the Halfling Purge for all MMOs. Lord of the Rings Online is about to get 10 times better. Next time on RPMMO Radio. Mwah! Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Later.
The thoughts and opinions of RPMMO Radio are just that and should not be taken off as the gospel truth. Music tonight is, as always, provided by Husky by the Geek. Visit him at youtube.com/huskybythegeek, not Greek, to hear all his great rock covers and video game-based covers. Good night, everybody.